Hey guys, we're back. It is still March's reading month. In reading is what?
Uh, Important. I forgot what it
Important,
was.
fundamental,
All that
helpful,
stuff.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
A- anyway, anyway,
Fundamental.
fundamental. Anyway, so sorry, I just wanted to try to do that for just for the bit for once, for
I
at
know.
least one time. But anyway, so this is a little bit of a semi-sequel. Our earlier episodes, I don't we in our earlier episodes we did talk about adaptations, but like we said, it is March, it is reading month, and what medium has been adapted more than books? Everywhere you look, there's a book movie. Some of the most popular pop culture movies are based off of books.
And even
Yep.
movies that you
Yep.
didn't think were adapted from books were actually adapted from books. And you
Yeah.
start to lose your mind.
Yeah. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, Harry Potter, Wizard of Oz, the a lot of Stephen King movies, let's be honest. I mean, they
Lord
made
of
a
the
whole
Rings.
Lord of the Rings, they made a whole Goosebumps TV show based off the books. So I mean that is a source of sent that's not the word I'm looking for. But that is a media that gets adapted frequently. I am losing not losing my voice. I'm having a hard time talking. So, Jenna, do you want to open up the floor a little bit?
Yeah. So, right off the bat, one of the things that I have on my mind in my notes here is what exactly makes for like a good book adaptation specifically. And really, it boils down to all people ask if you're going to adapt a book or even whatever is that you understand and respect the source material because changes are inevitable. Dialogue and scenes would have to be cut or changed, whatever. So something like this isn't entirely about whether it has the same plot or setting, but simply understands what the core of the original work is. Like, meaning you can take creative liberties to try new things, as plenty of adaptations have done this successfully, like things like Clueless and 10 Things I Hate About You, albeit those were loosely adapted. They depart from the source material in a creative way that respects the material. And those two examples, some of them don't even use the same title as the source material because it understands it's different enough to be its own thing. However, at the same time, you can keep the same title and change a lot of stuff about it and still be successful because you understand the core of what it's trying to say and or want to add something new that is in line with the original. Like the example that I like to bring up with is the How to Train Your Dragon movie trilogy. So really, it's about whether the changes they do make, because again, changes are inevitable, whether they add something meaningful, not as a replacement, but in conversation with the original, like trying to understand each other. So it's really saddening when there are some movie adaptations of books that don't want to or even refuse to have a conversation with the source material for whatever reason, probably because they don't want their audience to actually think the way that the book wants you to think. Or even when production studios outright lie about wanting to treat the material with respect, only to turn around and cut the author completely out of the process, have like hey, they had no interest in learning about what the book is, and then it becomes a soulless cash grab to ride the trend of something popular, like what happened with the making of the Earthsea mini series, where they whitewashed the characters and turned it into a generic magic fantasy story to ride the popularity of the Lord of the Rings movie trilogy. And yeah,
That really kind of you were talking about like adapting movies but not giving them the same title. I'm trying to remember. There's like a lot of Clueless is especially one good one. I know that there's a couple of very famous, like very big movies. I can't name off the top of my head that are I think spiritually is the word, but like spiritual adaptations of like the Odyssey and
Oh
such
yeah.
just because it's such a fit. It's not like adapting the story of the Odyssey verbatim, but it's just more the I guess it really depends on how the person who
It's
is
more
adapt
like
you know
it's more like taking scenes that the filmmaker or whatever finds more interesting or in line with the characters than anything else that they would want to put in the actual movie.
yeah, because I know that I can't remember the exact I was just talking about this. I was just thinking about this like recently. Oh, I guess we might have talked about this at one point, maybe not. But this might be wrong. But oh brother, where art thou?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Is okay. Actually, you know what? This was it. This was the one that was like really funny. The story of the Odyssey, the SpongeBob SquarePants movie is an adaptation of the story of the Odyssey when you really get down to it.
Oh my.
I mean, it's true. It's true. It's just it's really funny. So it's just the fact that you can boil the story. It's not about SpongeBob. I promise for the people watching, and not just because the day that we are recording this is the day that Krabs fries. Uh, that's just a happy accident. But anyway, it's not about SpongeBob with this. It's the fact that you can boil the story down of the Odyssey and take the sum or bits of the parts or bits of the story and make your own story from it. And that is kind of funny.
Yeah, and actually this brings up another interesting point about if you're worried about comparisons or if a movie or show wanted to be seen as its own thing without being tethered to the book, then just make something original instead of taking the easy route. Like it's
Yeah.
fine to be inspired by a book or books, but making it original, let me tell you, making it original will save you from all the adaptation headaches that come with audience reception and things like that.
Yeah,
And
because
also,
yeah.
and also, when you publish anything, people will people will hate things for the sake of doing so. That's just the risk that you take.
Not to mention, you can just do some of these adaptations of characters conceptually. Like, I'm gonna just rolling it back for one example is how said movie that I just mentioned adapted the Cyclops was a diver. That's actually a genius way to take the Cyclops, the mythical Cyclops from the story of the Odyssey, a very gigantic monster in a cave that has all the bones and just the such and such of like his captives and all that. And then you turn that into a gift shop with dried up, taxidermied up fish and all that stuff. Like it you take the concept of this part of the story. Obviously, it doesn't adapt the whole thing. There's not the whole story with Cersei's and all that stuff. They don't get into the Cersei's part, but I really do think it's very interesting in how they took. I don't want to say the cliff notes of the Odyssey, but I really
They
do.
just took they just took the ideas of something and just made it their own that would
Yeah,
fit naturally within the world of SpongeBob.
yeah. So if you did. for those who didn't know, yeah, and that's the last time I'm going to be mentioning it. The SpongeBob movie, the original one, is an adaptation of the Odyssey. So,
Mic
anyway,
drop.
yeah. Anyway, another thing you mentioned, and maybe I might have misunderstood a little bit of it, is like some book movies that are adaptations of books, but people didn't really know about it until later on, and they change a lot of the story. One good example, Who Censored Roger Rabbit,
Oh yeah,
is
yeah.
not a story about a detective trying to, you know, solve the mystery of, you know, who framed Roger Rabbit, as what the movie is called. Roger Rabbit in the books is dead. So they changed a lot of stuff in the movie to be a lot more kid friendly. They just kind of took, oh, it's a detective, it's a noir detective that lives in the world of toons. There are some other elements. I have not read the book myself. I actually may try to go find the book myself later on. But, you know, it is kind of funny to think how much of like some of these stories that you can take that are very much not for children and then turn it into a very child friendly movie, so to speak.
Yeah. And there's even and actually, sometimes I wonder for some of these adaptations now that you like brought it back, it's like I wonder if some of these adaptations were hoping that you didn't read the book or don't care if you read the book or not,
Yeah.
and those who are counting on you to actually read the book so that whenever changes do happen, it actually surprises you in a good way.
Yeah. Because obviously in some books for some movies you might have to write out a character that might not exactly work in this day and age. You know, I'm not trying to say nothing about like well, modern sensibilities or modern sensibilities. A book written back in the 50s might have a character that some people might see as very, very offensive. Even if like certain people, up high might think like, oh, offensive isn't bad anymore, blah, 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 blah. You know, it's nothing wrong to write out a character that probably isn't like the best for the story,
Or
especially if the
even
character doesn't even pertain to 100% of the story. Go ahead.
or even like what happened with like the 1971 Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, where they had to change the Oompa Loompas appearance because in
Oh
the
yeah,
original book it was not great. not
and
not great.
although I will say the way they did it in the original, not the original, the Tim Burton one, I would say conceptually is closer. Obviously, it's still pretty bad, but it's conceptually closer to the books. But yeah, no, I 100% agree.
But I think I think if I remember correctly, they changed the like backstory of the Oompa Loompas for the like 1971 the Tim Burton one to be more fantastical.
Yep,
Yeah.
because if I remember correctly, at least in the original book, I did read the original book very long ago. Uh, probably longer than some people. No, no, you guys are over 20. Um, but you know, people that are 20 right now probably it's been longer than that. But sorry, I know what I'm trying to say in the original books, the Oompa Loompas are kind of more treated like a pygmy human race. Obviously not white, but you like yeah, it's in retrospect, it is not actually. It's not good. It's not good. So yeah, no, it's it. I do appreciate when some of these adaptations kind of change like very problematic characterizations or character designs into something that's more appealing. Obviously, it kind of erases in a sense, like having kind of putting a spotlight on this kind of crappy behavior, be like, hey, we can't be like this. We have to be better. But I don't want to say just like censoring to share stuff is I guess it's a necessary evil,
I
I guess
mean,
so to
it
speak.
depends. It depends on the change,
Yeah,
on whether if it
100%.
like, yeah, it really depends on the change. But changes that can actually be pretty dangerous is where I don't know, actually I mentioned this in the previous episode about adaptations, is when filmmakers deliberately
Uh-huh.
misunderstand or ignore themes in favor of how they personally view a piece of work and
Yes.
wanting it to be a certain way. But some literature, like the recent Wuthering Heights, was never meant to be a certain way, whatever that may be. Like Wuthering Heights was never meant to be a freaking romance. Never, it never was. Never was. It was meant to be a criticism of racial prejudice and the generational cycle of abuse and trauma and learning how to break free from that. And it's like and the worrisome part about it is that these filmmakers are not done. Some of them are very clearly educated and very artistic. It's just I also think some are just naive and selfishly think that what's the harm in doing all of these things? And then which is also like not great and all. And also there are those that deliberately change elements because the companies or productions that are making them don't like being called out for their terrible actions by the book. Like with the Illuminations Lorax.
Oh yeah. I yeah, I was gonna say like yeah, it's been a hot minute. I know for at least in the original book and the original adaptation, they had it so it was like a big corpo type. Like the bad guy was Big Corpo. And obviously in the new movie it was still Big Corpo, but in the old one it was a little bit more like
It was more
the over commercialization of a product.
it was
Bro,
more like actually down to earth, realistic,
yes.
because it showed corporations for what they actually are.
Uh-huh.
They're conglomerates who only care about themselves and they don't care about the consequences.
Yes.
And the way that I made this thought very clear in the adaptations episode was that it's like they turned it, Illumination turned this, being the production company that always likes to bend backwards for all the corporations around it, that they turned the whole thing into a one-dimensional big bad corporation getting taken down and
Yeah.
CEO being like defeated and that somehow collapses the corporation when that's not how it works. And it's even like that's just not how it works. And
Well, yep.
the original Lorax like showed a realistic take on that to show that it's very gray in the
Yeah.
sense of you can sympathize with the Onceler and what he's doing, but you don't feel sorry for him because it's all his actions.
Yeah, because in the newer movie, it's like they tried to humanize him a lot more.
Or they
Obviously,
try to or they try to pin the blame on fairy tale evil parents,
yeah.
family, instead of actually making it like, it was all his doing, it was all his actions. He decided to do all of this himself.
Yeah, because that was in the older movie in the book. Obviously, it was down just to the one slur, but the one slur they didn't give him a face in the old movie. Well, in the short, technically,
Yeah, the short and the book, they purposefully didn't give him a
because
face because
because
it's
it's a
meant to
faceless. It's a
meant to
faceless
represent faceless,
corporation.
yes, faceless corporations, and that anyone can become the one sort with enough
Exactly.
greed and greed-induced indifference.
Yeah, but once you give a character who is meant to be the epitome of a faceless corporation a face, then you give it an identity, and that completely misses the point of the original story.
Yeah, and the point of the ambiguous ending in the original Lorax is it's meant to be ambiguous because it's
Yes,
meant to show it's up to us, the next generation, to fix all of the mistakes, and it's our responsibility to do it, whether we want to actually break the cycle or continue it.
exactly. It is it is kind of funny how we're talking about Dr. Seuss adaptations and the fact that what did it already come out or is it coming out this year? They're doing a
It's
new
coming out. The Cat in the Hat movie is
yeah.
coming out this year,
I was gonna
but it's
say
not out yet.
yeah, it's not out yet. It's just if I had a nickel for every time there's been a Cat in the Hat adaptation, like I said, have the same amount of nickels for every time there's been a Grinch adaptation. Uh,
I
but
have two nickels, but it's
which
weird
isn't
that
a
it happened
lot.
twice. Which
But
isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
but if I remember correctly, wasn't like the whole thing with after the Mike Myers Cat in the Hat adaptation, I thought there was like gonna be a whole clause of like, oh, we're not gonna be doing adaptations, but no, I think wasn't it like the estate has to have like overview of the contents of the film before the film comes out?
I I don't remember. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but if I remember correctly, they were originally going to kind of make an unofficial like trilogy where the third movie was going to be something like oh the places you could go or something
Okay.
like that. But then after the failure of the Cat in the Hat, all plans for that were dropped.
Okay. Oh, so it was like so the Grinch, Cat in the Hat were supposed to be like part of like a shadow trilogy,
Well,
so to
well,
speak.
it. I think that idea started when with the creation with like when the Cat in the Hat adaptation, live action adaptation was in production or something.
Okay. Yeah, because like they only did two live action Seuss movies, I think. Yeah. Yeah. I will say though, I will say what I appreciate, especially when it comes to like children's book adaptations that do adapt to work. And actually, how I wouldn't even say children's book adaptations. We'll say book adaptations because I just finished binging a new season of a show that's also a book adaptation of One Piece. And adapting work that is very much very flamboyant in its presentation and basically adapting it to a T. I think I prefer that more than like sometimes when they just like try to tone down all the colors and such. Maybe I'm just being kind of a little bit biased because like I said, I just watched that show and they're putting all these like professional actors, like big hoity-toity professional actors. I think it's like Dan Mastain or whatever. I can't remember his full last name, but he plays Mr. Three, and they just give him like a part of it. They made his hair look like a three, like it's actually designed like the book. I appreciate that's the furthest I'm getting in talking about One Piece. It was just more talking about how the thing I like going back, looking at those movies, is I liked how they kind of brought the world of the book, the world of like this cartoony book, into the real world.
Yeah. And would
Like,
you say that it in a way like embraced the sort of campiness
yes,
of the whole thing? Yeah.
yes, 100%. I think obviously there was the issues with I can understand with how Mike Myers is sense of humor definitely probably swayed the wanting to do any more live action adaptations for it, because like, you get some of these actors who are more crass and crude humor. Obviously a lot of people like the Jim Carrey Grinch movie.
And the thing is, the reason it worked in that was because Jim
In the
Carrey's
character.
personality just fits well with
Yeah.
the Grinch. Like, and something like Mike Myers type of humor just doesn't work with Cat in the Hat because they're just not the same. They're not the same.
Yeah, it's more Cat in the Hat is zany in a more of a Looney Tunes way, but not like, well, I guess that uh I can't say that because they did kind of make him like a living Looney Tune, but I think because they went a little bit too far, so to speak. I don't know. I know Looney Tunes was pretty crass when it comes to some of their jokes, but I think it's just that like step a little bit too far. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think,
And
yeah.
oh, sorry.
No, no.
Oh, I was another point I wanted to bring up was because I know that some of these things uh there is the question about whether if you can enjoy a movie or a TV adaptation of a book completely separate from the source material, because while there is nothing stopping you from enjoying the movie or show by itself, the adaptation, especially if using the same title as the original work, will always be attached to it, no matter how much you try to separate it. It's like you can't view it entirely as its own thing, completely separate, because as a result, comparisons will always be inevitable. These things just don't exist in isolation, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
However, I also acknowledge there is a spectrum of people who don't understand or don't care about the book, those who really do care about it, and those in between. Like, for example, you can like Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein because the attention to detail and the performances show how much they care about the project, but it's just not Frankenstein, since all of the morally uncomfortable themes that made Frankenstein such a memorable story is gone. And the movie is just your standard Beauty and the Beast, man is the real monster story. Which,
I
if
mean,
this
there's
was
still
just
some.
like, if it's like it, if and that's fine because Guillermo del Toro is known for that kind of thing. But it's just not the original Frankenstein story because
There's
he
still a little.
actually, I mean,
There's
sorry.
there's still a little bit of moral grayness there, but I get what you mean.
Yeah, because in the original book, like there almost every single character is flawed
Uh-huh.
in some capacity, and they all have to deal with all the morally uncomfortable things of the world. And that's also another thing, like why some of these adaptations can be frustrating because it's almost like they're trying to, and I want to mention this in our later episode this month about growing illiteracy, like the decline of media literacy, especially with books, is like it's when they water down all of the complexities and nuances of a book just to make it more palatable
Yeah.
for a mainstream audience. It just
Yes.
that's not a lot of that doesn't bring staying power.
Yeah. John, you get sent me a little bit of a quick thing. You wanted to say something. You wanted to get some stuff out.
Yeah, yeah. So regarding the whole adaptation, yeah, the whole thing about adaptation, whether you do it by a movie or by a television series, yes, it is about making sure that these people follow the real material. Because if you stray away from material, things are going to happen. And when things happen, then they wonder why everything falls apart. Um, in the way of changes to an adaptation, I've always liked the changes in like the Narnia movies from
Hmm.
2005 and on because they actually included the Pevensies more. If you
Hmm.
read Prince Caspian, the four kids return, they save Trumpkin, and then three-quarters of the book the rest of the book, almost half to three-quarters, is Caspian's story told by Trumpkin. And then when we get back to the kids, it's like the kids are barely doing anything.
Yeah.
Like they're not in the raid. They're not there's like all these things that they're not part of, which kind of waters down in that regard. But I do like that Andrew Adamson did include the kids more because I felt like, well, before Prince Caspian released, I was thinking like, well, Peter and Susan aren't going to do much, so I guess I'm not going to care if they leave or not. And then they did do a lot, and I really didn't want to let them go. That's what I liked about Prince Caspian. It was like I didn't want to see these characters leave because of the impact on how they wrote the characters, saying, I don't want these kids to leave. But they have to, because in the books it says they don't come back. Um,
Yeah.
and
And
regardless
that
to oh no, go ahead.
Oh, and that's also one of the times where changes can actually be a good thing
Yeah.
because it's almost like they're fixing the mistakes, like actual like well, I don't know, mistakes seems like a harsh word in this example, just like I guess in a way helping to flesh out things that seemed underwhelming in the
In the
book.
yeah, in the original manuscripts. Probably and I know this has really helped with TV adaptations, especially with recent TV adaptations such as Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson, Christopher Paolini's Aragon. Is I'm so glad that they're actually being included in the scripts for these adaptations because let me tell you, they were not in the room. Unfortunately, it did not sound like they were even in the writers' room when these changes happened to their adaptations. Um, which is very unfortunate. And Lloyd Alexander was definitely not included. Lloyd Alexander, author of the Prydain Chronicle books, he was definitely not included in the adaptation.
Yeah.
Though I know the Black Cauldron is not the best adaptation ever. I know it's possibly the worst adaptation,
Hey,
but
that's my favorite Disney movie. I'm not
yeah,
gonna
the books are
besides
so much
Hercules or
better.
but besides the Aladdin, Hercules, Tarzan, like
Hmm.
Faster to Time. But yeah, that is like my top. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
I will defend the Black Cauldron. I will
Here's
say
the
that.
thing. Here's the thing. I defend the Black Cauldron. I would also defend the Black Cauldron because number one, it's probably the only adaptation we're ever gonna get,
Yeah.
regardless of how it's gonna look. I mean, the only show that makes Prydain look like Prydain is the Willow series. Like
Yeah.
that, those characters look more like Prydain than Prydain will ever probably ever look.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So, in regards to those adaptations, um, would I like to see a Prydain Chronicles series based on the books? Of course, I'd love to see an adaptation, but it's a matter of who's going to have the guts to do it. I want to see a Book of Three adaptation. I want to see the Black Cauldron. I want to see the Castle of Lear. I want to see Taran Wanderer, and I want to see the High King. I want to see all five stories adapted. I don't care if they do it as a mini series or a series of movies. I just want an adaptation and I want to see it done right.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people have pitched they want Peter Jackson to do it. He's not doing it. Um, he's not doing it. Even with the Lord of the Rings adaptations, what's interesting about the Lord of the Rings adaptations, a lot of people will complain like, "Oh, there's no Tom Bombadil in the book in the original films. There's no this, there's no that." But you should give them credit because how they constructed the screenplays was that when they were planning out the screenplays, obviously you can go like moment by moment, like things happening by things happening. But what was interesting was they wrote the scripts as if the events happened in the appendices. So basically, the appendices in the back of the Lord of the Rings books is basically the mapping out of when these events happened. And that's how the Lord of the Ring movies were adapted, was they went by those instead of going by the um events that the books happen. Because in tech, for example, when Gandalf goes to meet Saruman, that story is talked about in the Council of Elrond, and
Right.
all that jazz. But it's still Lord of the Rings, still the original three movies, still probably the best adaptations we're ever going to get, regarding of what we ended up with through other companies.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd like to see the series of Inkheart being redone. I'd like to see an Inkheart adaptation.
Because they only did the
It
one movie, and the movie wasn't like the
wasn't the
best.
Yeah,
best.
I remember, actually, I remember watching that movie and I barely remember what the frick happened other than like the mechanics of how characters get brought to life doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I found it inconsistent.
Well,
Yeah,
it definitely kind of goes down to the early to mid 2000s was like a huge boom for
high
uh
fantasy.
high fantasy tween book movies or young adult book movies.
Yeah.
Because obviously we had it. I wouldn't say it started with Harry Potter. You already
I
mentioned
like to think it started with Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings
it
started
really
it
did.
all.
Yeah, actually, you know what? Well, I think it kind of started around the same time, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings was definitely like the big push off, especially for like high fantasy. Even though I feel like high fantasy kind of, I don't want to say it died down, like especially after the Hobbit sequels had came out. But there was like a stretch of time between the 70s and to when Lord of the Rings came out, where there was a lot of big blockbuster movies that were high fantasy, especially like Conan the Barbarian, like those
Oh yeah.
stories. That was
Legend,
yes, Legend, uh,
Excalibur.
Excalibur. There's a lot of good like dark fantasy, like those types of movies from like 40, 50 years prior from this year, obviously. Lee.
Mhm.
It's just I really do. Oh, I can't talk. Jenny, you mentioned the thing about like also separating the art from the artist. And I tend to see a lot of when it comes to the Harry Potter series, I do not agree with, and I do not like the author for the series because of her comments on certain people, on trans people. And she's just kind of seen it gotten a lot worse. But a lot of people still love the material in it. And I think you have directors that can take designs that kind of, if you actually read deeper into them, they aren't necessarily culturally appropriate. They just kind of make them more, I don't want to just say monster like, but obviously, you take the goblins or the dwarfs or the elves. The subtext is still there. I like you have to actually tell people to their face what the subtext for like some of these characters are. I mean, if you actually think about like what Dobby is, as a like a in a deeper
Yeah,
sense
that
outside of a house elf, it's like,
yeah.
oh, this is a oh yeah.
Yeah, once again, I almost feel like Rowling didn't entirely think this through.
Oh no, I also again, please don't sue us, Universal, Warner Brothers, all those people. We're just having make our opinions, but
Yeah.
she was kind of putting her views on things in it subtly. But I will say, and I will give it to the Christopher Columbus movies, that they were very well done. And the actors are very good, very decent people. And
Yeah, and even some of them, sorry.
Oh
And
no,
even
no.
some of them like publicly called out Rowling for
Yes.
her behavior. And we're like, we're not supportive of her actions at all.
Yeah. I feel like um the best way I can say it, I probably personally would not buy merch of Harry Potter stuff.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
and I and
I, I,
I,
no,
I was just gonna say like, so I was just gonna say like a different point, but I'll
no, no,
say
no.
that for like is that I feel like when it comes to wanting to still engage with the material even after like the creator came out as like a terrible person, like I get why someone wouldn't want to separate art from the artist, but I also feel like if you have to for a specific reason, then maybe do it intelligently.
Yeah,
That being like, don't buy any of the merch, don't buy like
yeah,
the book, just don't buy anything from
yeah.
them
Cut.
because any like money that you buy from the money that you give to these books, they do go to
Yeah,
the creators. So
yeah.
something to consider.
I know for certain, and I'll say this: a book series, a manga series that I liked, an anime series that I liked as a child was ruined for me because the author was a nonce, if you know what I mean. The Rurouni Kenshin books. I love the series. I love the movies. You know, there's a lot to get into that we don't have time for. But the story of the book or the book was ruined for me because the author liked kids. And it's like for me morally, I just can't even like support that. You know, it's just
Yeah.
for me that's hard. Even I wouldn't even want my nostalgia glasses to see a cool action figure of the character. I can't do it. I can't do it. So
Yeah.
it is kind of hard. But you know, kind of going back with the J.K. Rowling issue with Harry Potter is you can't necessarily blame the actors for the author's actions behind the scenes, so to speak, because you know you get like Daniel Radcliffe openly and publicly just like I wouldn't say ostracizes, but you know he he doesn't agree with her. Some of the other actors don't agree with her. So, you know, I'm not going to give the any of the actors any crap for, you know,
And some of them, and I like to think, and when the movies were being made, no one knew.
yeah,
No
no.
one knew exactly.
Well, you know, 20 almost 30 years ago, I would say 20 years ago. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, some of these like, we didn't have these platforms for people just to be like, I don't like these type of people, and just everybody's just like,
I mean,
oh yeah,
true, but still, you know.
yeah,
The thing is that when you are an author, the whole point of when you are an author and you have social media is to tell people that you're writing your book, you're
yeah,
promoting your material of your written work, and that's it.
yeah.
They need to
Yeah.
just stick to the material, to them saying, I'm writing this book, and this is when it's going to be released.
I
That's it.
I
Yeah.
feel like we might
And
go over time. I want what?
well, actually, I did want to mention one other point because John brought this up in terms of like marketing yourself.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And another thing I think some filmmakers and even authors don't
Mhm.
entirely understand how much marketing and what they say in interviews and events really play into
yeah,
audience expectations. And this is especially true with filmmakers because when you say things like previous iterations didn't do the story justice, or you claim to be a super fan of a specific book, like what happened with the Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, is that people it automatically gives people a certain expectation when they go to watch your movie or your show even that that people expect that you will give the adaptation that book fans want, that it will capture the essential core of what made the source material so great. So when the adaptation fails at that and people get upset, it's like, can you really blame the audience for getting upset when you hyped yourself up so irresponsibly like that?
Yeah.
Here's a question before we end this episode. Here's a question I have for you guys, and I'll also answer this question. Do we have a favorite adaptation of certain material? And what do we consider as, on our own opinions, what do we consider as the worst adaptation of a certain piece of material?
Like I said, Black Cauldron.
Hmm.
Obviously, I have not personally read the Prydain Chronicles myself, but that's still my favorite Red Disney movie, hands down.
Hmm.
Um, you know what? I'm just gonna say it. Uh, I watched the movie. They made a movie of this. It was
Yeah.
not very good.
Hmm.
I'm just, I, I like the costuming. You could like the costuming of a movie you feel is like absolute crap, but I watched this movie. It's not very good. I don't know if that's just because the Japanese studios, blah blah blah, But yeah, those are my two.
um I mean, I haven't really thought about this question,
Hmm.
admittedly. So, I don't know. There's just a lot of examples.
I
Uh,
Yeah, and I probably have like a better example, but like off the top of my head, and like mentioned when he mentioned Black Cauldron, I said that's like one of my favorite movies. I know a lot of people have issues with it because of it relating to the actual Prydain Chronicles, but it's like I feel like it is a visually stunning movie. And comparing it to the book, obviously, it's probably got its issues, but I feel like it's a very good movie. John, since Jenna can't really think of anything off the top of her head, do you want to go with yours?
Okay, so for worst adaptation, um, I would, I don't, I mean, Inkheart for one wasn't that great of an adaptation. Unfortunately, though I really do hope that that will come out of that will be rising again up again like a phoenix. Probably the worst of the worst is probably Aragon movie, Aragon, probably the worst of the worst of adaptation. Um, and for the best adaptation, to my opinion, I know there's a lot of people who don't really agree with this adaptation, but I just can't say no to Greta Gerwig's Little Women because it just made sense that it was her to adapt that. And I mean, Peter Jackson adapting Lord of the Rings, that was great. He did a wonderful job with that. Andrew Adamson doing the Chronicles of Narnia, he did what he could with that. Still, it was, it has its ups and downs. Narnia adaptations have their ups and downs. Still good.
Yeah.
Um, but still, sometimes when you find the right person to do the right thing, like um Francis Lawrence for the Hunger Games, he he's phenomenal. Francis Lawrence for the Hunger Games is just as good as Peter Jackson with the Lord of the Rings. If I'm putting out my own opinion on that,
They
of
are good
course.
book adaptations. I will not
Yeah,
disagree. I feel
yeah.
like when it comes to depicting the government in the Hunger Games movies, it is very much to the book, and I feel like it's almost kind of, I would want to say, very poignant or very what's another word I'm thinking of.
Very
You know,
scary that I'm scared of us.
it's very scary how like close it can feel to like reality, so to speak. Um,
yeah.
so
And
anyway,
yeah.
yeah. So well, I think we're all kind of feeling a little bit groggy. So, well, we are M.I.Diverse. We are going to see you guys next week, but we try to stay on topic. I think we're all kind of feeling, maybe I'm just feeling, I just haven't had caffeine. But please, like, comment, subscribe, share. If you're on Facebook, actually watch the video on YouTube for the views because that's what we need. We need the views on YouTube. Same thing with Twitter. I know, I know those of you who maybe actually just be listening to this on Twitter are watching it on Twitter or Facebook because I'm not seeing the numbers. I'm not seeing the numbers. You gotta be watching it. So, like, comment, subscribe, share the crap out of it, please. We try to stay on subject. We really do. But, it's hard because our brains are just going all back and forth. So, I'm Dryw, John, Jenna. Thanks for watching, guys. So, we will see you guys next time.